Booktube. Welcome to another Recent Reads. I've got 9, maybe 10 reads here. I'm halfway through something that I may not finish, so that counts as 10. Daryl Schweitzer, We Are All Legends. This I heard about from a booktuber. I can't remember the name now, so I'll link him and I'll put up a picture or something. But he's the only person I've seen talk about this author or this collection of short stories, which involve Julian the Apostate, but not the one from our history. Julian is well, first of all, these are short sword and sorcery stories, all connecting, all to do with the same character. And I doubt there's anything out there that's closer to Jurel of Jory, both in content and style. Because Jurel of Jory is about this woman in medieval Europe who, through the course of a bunch of short stories, encounters a lot of supernatural entities and perils that she barely escapes from. And Julian the Apostate is a soldier in the Crusades, again in Europe, but much like Jurel of Jory, I feel like it's a Europe that's adjacent to ours, some other alternate timeline, because there's a lot of myth and magic interwoven. In the first story, Julian kind of accidentally, through a good deed but being tricked, basically condemns his soul to the devil. And so he lives the rest of his life with the knowledge that his afterlife will be spent in hell. And so he loses his faith in Catholicism and in the Crusades, and he ends up just wandering around Europe and into some other fantastical territories, and just has these encounters with mythical and supernatural entities. And they were really fun. Like, I like tortured characters, and this guy is tortured. There's also like 1 or 2 illustrations for every story that are really good. But yeah, these were really good. A tortured soul who sometimes does the right thing, often inadvertently causes more mayhem than good. He's like Jurel of Jory, but less competent and less brave. And it was really good. I've since then, where are they here? Since then bought 2 more books by him. These are also from the 80s. The Shattered Goddess, which involves like a dying earth type setting where the ruling god has died or is actively dying. And it's a bunch of short stories that take place in the world around this event. There's a lot of power moves and politics to take advantage of during the transition, I guess, between 2 gods, I guess. Later in the 80s, he wrote a bunch of short story prequels to that novel, and they are here. This is from Borgeau Press, and the other 2 are from Wildside Press. So I'm really looking forward to checking out more by this author, because I absolutely loved We Are All Legends. These are a little out of order for my reading order, but I recently finished Robert Silverberg's Earth's Other Shadow. And as is typical with the short story collections, I seem to rate them kind of 3 out of 5. Some are good, some not so much. The longest in this was called How It Was When the Past Went Away, which is a story about somebody pouring drugs into the water supply of San Francisco and everybody losing parts of their recent or not so recent memory, and a new religion rising up out of it. It involved a bunch of different characters and their situation related to that. Hidden Talent was good. That was from 1957, and it was very James H. Smith's. It was somebody in a guild from Earth who developed side talents, but before you can be placed in the field to use those for this guild, it's not really explained what they do so much. He has to go live on a backwater world and learn for a period of 5 years to suppress and hide his ability. Because on Earth, if you have the talent, you can just use it freely. Before you're sent out, I think, to other planets to solve mysteries or stop crime or something, you need to be able to hide this ability, or else it's not so useful. But they send you to a backwater world where you'll be considered a witch if people see you using psi powers or telekinetics or stuff. And this guy has telekinetic abilities, and he quickly learns he cannot suppress them. He's going to be found out, so he needs to think of a way to survive these 5 years using his abilities with no one being the wiser. That was really cool. It just gave me James H. Schmidt vibes with his future history of the Federation and all the Talsey Amberdin stories. Yeah, the rest, not so much. There was a really dark one, the last story called Flies, about someone who is killed in a spaceship accident and some aliens put him back together, but make some differences, and he goes back to Earth and wreaks havoc in a few personal lives. It was really, really dark. But as always, like, Silverberg's enjoyable. Even when his stories aren't so great, there's still a lot to think about. The first thing I read since my last video, though, so my memory of this is very limited, is Still Forms on Foxfield by Joan Selinsky. The only thing else I've read by her was A Door into Ocean, which is one of my favorites. Not that I remember much, but it really blew me away with the world building and just the depth of the themes and the characters. This, however, was her first novel, and it's nowhere near as well written or plotted or anything. It's about a group of Quakers who settle their own planet, and then a few hundred years in the future, a ship from Earth arrives. And of course, Earth society is drastically changed. Their technology is about as high-tech as you could possibly get. So it's really a culture clash of them inadvertently making changes to this, simple community on this planet. But the people on this planet coexist with like a conscious plant life. And the whole crux of the story focuses on, well, it doesn't focus actually on it. It happens right at the end, really, where it's all about what is this alien entity and is it manipulating events on this planet, kind of thing. And ultimately, I was left a little confused as to the ending. It was pretty lackluster. It was an interesting read, but not one I would recommend. If you're going to read something by her, probably her short stories or A Door into Ocean. But it's her first novel, so. Destiny Doll by Clifford Simak. I won't say much because I did a great discussion video with Ira, Scott Danielson, and Sean Stanfast on Sean Stanfast's channel. And I'll link the video where we discussed it, but Sean has, every month he's reading a Simak novel and having a discussion with other booktubers. And it was really fun. It involves, much like every other book I've read by him almost, a quest, this time on an alien planet where the characters are trapped, and their survival is a constant struggle. And they start disappearing, and it all revolves around some mysterious trees planted on this place, and a little wooden doll they find, the past inhabitants. There's a lot going on and a lot left unanswered, which makes for a really great discussion, and it was fun. I finished up The Best of Philip K. Dick, which was better than I expected, because I've read short stories by him, and the only novel I read of his was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. That was all years ago, and I really kind of struggled with that novel and his short stories, so I figured he wasn't going to be for me, but I actually really enjoyed this collection, especially the story Second Variety. That was really awesome. Nothing really special about it now that so many stories about androids have come since then, But putting it into context of a story from the 50s, that story was awesome and really got me excited for the rest of this. So Ira, Richard, and I are doing a discussion video on this shortly, and Steve the Outlaw Bookseller is going to join us, so that'll be fun, and that'll be on Richard's channel probably the end of, well, before the end of January, actually. Then I read my first A.E. Van Vogt novel. I have read a few short stories. The Book of Taff, which I thought started out incredibly good. When was this written? Probably, yeah, late 40s. Oh, mid 40s, 1943. This involves a god, basically the god of humanity, who is a human himself, but he's a god now. Millions of years in the future, going back into the past and living out a bunch of human lives just to get reacquainted with humanity, basically. But someone in the future, or his contemporary time, manipulates things and brings him back too soon, so he's basically riddled with amnesia, and he's kind of stuck with the consciousness of the last person he was, which is a World War II tank commander. It was a really good setup, but then it got, with so much subterfuge and characters manipulating things, it got really confusing. I still really liked the ideas and stuff, but it got really out there and confusing near the end. I started losing interest in kind of this civil war of the future that was going on. I was more interested in the character himself. But there's some cool consciousness projection and a look at a far future society that was really interesting, especially since this was written in 43. So while I didn't totally enjoy this, I am looking forward to reading more A.E. Van Vogt. Then I read Lawrence Watt Evans, my first read of his, Denner's Wreck. I read this because it was described on Goodreads as being similar to Roger Zelazny's Lords of Light. And it's basically like a YA before there was YA. It's very simply written. The plot is very simple. The characters are pretty simple too. Anytime somebody is theorizing on the motives of another character, it always turns out to be right. That was the motives of the other character. Like, there's really no mystery to this. It was very simple, and I would not enjoyed it if not for the high tech of the humans on this backward planet. You know, long ago, a ship crashed here, crash landed. The colonists, you know, 1,000 years later are living not even a medieval lifestyle. It's more like hunter-gatherers. And of course, from high-tech Earth, a group of humans come for vacation, a 400-year vacation. And, you know, over time, the local inhabitants see these people as gods. And I only enjoyed the read because it was very Neil Asher, these godlike humans who really are just running around on this planet leisurely, pursuing their own interests, not having much to do with the locals at all unless they happen across one. And, you know, when that happens, a myth is formed about if this person survives, because some of these far future humans, they don't care about the locals. If you anger them, they'll just kill you. But it involves a local kid coming into contact with one of these gods, and the two of them stumble on a mystery, kind of a civil war between the gods, and they have to thwart this evil to save the planet. And yeah, pretty simple. I don't think I would ever read this again, but I kind of want to keep it on my shelf just for the memories of the high-tech stuff, because it was written in, I think, 87, 88, and a lot of the stuff in here reads like Neil Asher's characters, where, you know, their tech is so high-tech it's indistinguishable from magic, basically. So not a great read, but parts of it were enjoyable. Then I had my first, or what I thought was my first experience with Robert Sheckley. It turns out one of the stories in here, or possibly two, I've read before. This was a gift from my friend Norm at the bookstore on Pluto. 13 Robert Sheckley stories. I had only read one previously, which I didn't realize until I was reading it. But these are all, I believe, from the 50s. So basically, this was my introduction to Sheckley, and I was not disappointed. Um, these are not all science fiction. Some are fantasy, some are neither, really. But there's something about his writing. Like, the only word I can come up with is like his prose and his characters and even the plot. Sometimes there's like a softness to it. Uh, like the prose is very simple. It's like a really enjoyable, easy reading experience. Um, and let me see a couple of my favorites here. Well, there's one where a demon, well, what we would consider a demon, has a pentagram on his floor. He summons another demon because he wants to summon a demon and get one wish. But who he ends up summoning is an insurance salesman from Earth. I know I read that story somewhere, but I haven't bothered looking up on isfdb.org yet, but I'm sure I read it somewhere. And it's just funny, the way the insurance salesman gets out of this predicament, because he can't possibly grant this demon's wish. And if he doesn't, he'll be imprisoned for all eternity. And he gets out of it in a very funny way. I think my favorite would be Specialist. Now, when was that written? I think 1953, involving a alien crew on an alien spacecraft, but the alien crew is the spacecraft. The walls of the spacecraft are themselves alien creatures who basically resemble walls and are able to connect together and hold an atmosphere within them. And within them are various other aliens from other planets who all have a special function. Like one is basically a telescope. One just has a bunch of tendrils and acts as the communication between all of them. And they get caught in a solar storm, and the only member of the crew who is killed from this incident is the Pusher. They all are named after what they do in the ship. And eventually we learn that a Pusher is a human. Not a human from Earth, though. There's humans or human-type creatures all over the galaxy. So now they need a new Pusher, but they're nowhere near explored space. So they stumble upon Earth, they kidnap a human, and they have to convince him to be their Pusher. Again, it's just like, not necessarily humorous, but like a soft, it's almost like Clifford Simek. It's just enjoyable and fun, and I really enjoyed that one. Seventh Victim was another good one where, although the conceit is ridiculous, to get rid of war, you need to still satisfy man's innate desire for cruelty, I guess. So the future humanity comes up with a system where you can apply to be a hunter, which is basically this organization where you can apply to be hunted. There's like a 1 week period where you try to avoid being shot to death by somebody who has been assigned your hunter. And if you survive, you can also kill the hunter in self-defense. If you survive, then in a few months, you will be granted a hunter and you get a week to kill somebody. And it's very prestigious when you get your 10th kill, basically. You enter like a guild of sorts. And the story is about this guy who's got 6 kills. He's on his 7th. And the person who he's assigned to kill is a woman, and not often do women sign up. And he finds her. She's not making any attempt to defend herself, which he finds strange, and he decides to just talk to her, not revealing that he's her hunter. And they get to know each other, and he inadvertently screws himself over. It was humorous, but also dark. Probably the darkest, yeah, I'd say the darkest one on there, or in here. But yeah, they were all, for the most part, fun and enjoyable. So the last book I have to talk about, I decided to check out Sheckley's novels because I only have one, but I was curious, what can this guy do in a longer format? So those were all written in the 50s. I haven't even really looked up Sheckley. I don't know how many novels he wrote, but Status Civilization was written in 1960. And this is an ace double. The second half is short stories. So I read Status Civilization mostly because it sounded a lot like Seventh Victim. Um, in the future on Earth, if you are caught as a criminal, you are shipped to a prison planet where the prisoners just have their own society. Earth doesn't govern it at all. They just dump you there into this town, and this place is basically ruled by lawlessness. You're encouraged to murder, but there are rules, much like that short story. So at first I thought maybe it was an expansion, but no, it's a totally different story. But it wasn't great. I don't know if this was his first short story. Or first novel. I should have done better research, but it was just very simply, plainly written. Not much to make you think. It was really just about a guy who doesn't believe he did commit murder. And so how can he get from the prison planet back to Earth? And of course, when he gets to Earth, Earth is not what he thought it was. Everyone on the prison planet has their memory erased. They're just told that they committed a crime. So yeah, it was just, it almost felt like a juvenile story, really. So I wasn't really impressed with it. I would get rid of this if it wasn't a double, because I am still interested in reading Notions Unlimited, the short story collection at the back, which actually is not many short stories. It's 7 stories, but it's like almost 300 pages long. So yeah, probably longer format stories than what's in here. So someday I'll get back to Sheckley's short stories. I'm still curious what he can do with a novel. So if you have any recommendations for a Robert Sheckley novel, let me know. And the last thing that I was reading, now I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Terry Dowling's Rhinoceros. This is like far future, high tech. It's kind of like cyberpunk. Well, there's lots of cyberpunk elements. This was written in the 90s. It's short stories involving a character called Tom Tyson, who in a lottery wins a ship called the Rhinoceros. It's a sand ship. All of these stories take place in Australia, where different Aboriginal tribes dominate the interior of the continent with high tech, and white people or any foreigners kind of live on the outskirts of Australia. And the first story involves some sort of AI giving full access to the continent to 7 different white captains, which is unheard of. And so the Aboriginal powers that be kind of want to, like, they revere AI as gods, basically. So they can't negate this decree from the AI. So they try to investigate why this is happening. And Tom Tyson, the latest of these white captains, is given a mission. But it's all written so show don't tell, but also the prose is weird that it's almost incomprehensible, to me at least. Somebody with a higher intellect, I'm sure, would really love this. Terry Dowling is like an award-winning author. And like, there is some really crazy stuff happening in here, but I tried this years ago and DNF'd it after a few pages. I'm happy to say I did finish the first story and I did finish the second. So I just described the first story, but it was hard to piece together that that's actually what was happening. The second story involves Tom Tyson kind of as a peripheral character in some sort of hunt for a shape-shifting creature that may have been created through genetics, or it may have just adapted that way. And due to various laws and stuff, you're only allowed to hunt it for a couple more days before this new law is passed, and Tom Tyson is trying to prevent its death, as you know, it could be the only one left, and science deserves to save it and study it. Again, it's just written like, it's almost like there is no world building. You're just in the world, and the world is incomprehensible. So I am not enjoying this at all, but I am determined to read one of these stories every now and then and finish this thing. The world is fascinating. It's just the writing is dense and evasive. It's so hard, at least for me, to follow what's happening. But at the same time, there's just some crazy, crazy ideas in this. So I will keep persevering and reading one of these when the mood strikes. You know, there's not that many stories and they're not that long each, but they are difficult. I don't know how I came across this book. It's a Guild of America book. Like, it's really nice looking. It's not a book club. The jacket art is by Ron Lowatsky. It caught my eye, I guess, like 7 or 8 years ago. It's really, really nice looking, and the stuff inside is cool, but really hard to understand. And that's where I'm at with my recent reads. I don't know what I'm going to read next. Probably edit this and then stare at my shelves until something speaks to me, as always. So, as always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.